Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and today we will continue looking ahead to Week 4 by breaking down some of your start-sit questions and also going over some top DFS plays. So very special guest today, Action Network and FantasyLabs analyst, reigning top 5 ranker in the Fantasy Football Ranking Accuracy Challenge, all-around sharp dude, and just a good friend of mine, Chris Raybon. Chris, how's it going, man?
Doing good, Ian. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk with you about some football. It's been a minute, and man, I mean, what a year.
What a year is right, man. It's, luckily, though, I saw an interesting thing on Twitter today where scoring's up. I believe it was 5 points per game because they're actually calling holding penalties at like 1% less or a lot less, whatever it might be. So, out of a lot of things going wrong in 2020, at least we finally have refs swallowing their whistle a little bit more. So we got that.
That's actually a misconception. Scoring's not going up. It's just all Russell Wilson. It's like when you throw 14 touchdowns in 3 games, that'll kind of raise scoring around the league. That'll kind of fuck up your priors and your base rates. Shit,
You had me really nervous that I was like forgetting something, but no, it's just some Russ love, which, hey, man, yeah, that also makes sense. So, so anyway, every Tuesday, the @PFF _fantasy Twitter account sends out a tweet asking for your toughest start-sit questions. I compiled them to get some interesting ones with some of the, more hot topic players, and Chris and I are going to go over them. So let's get after it. Starting off, Chris, we're just going to assume, not Apple QBs, but assume PPR for these. Right now, though, Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, or Gardner Minshew, who you got?
That's a really good question. I would go with Matthew Stafford. I think Jared Goff could throw, 2, 3, even 4 touchdowns, but the yardage expectation in a game where you're a 13-point favorite is going to be a little bit lower. They could get into a run-heavy script, and they've run, I believe it's 37 times to 30 passes on average. But Stafford has Galladay back. That completely changes his average target depth. He's going way down the field with Galladay, and this could be a shootout. The New Orleans defense hasn't been very good.
Yeah, they got a lot of talent out there, but definitely haven't played to their potential at this point. Stafford with the number 1 receiver back. Minshew still doesn't have his, and I think when it is, an offense like the Jaguars where, they got some good guys. I'm not giving up on Chenault or anything like that, but you do lose a true potential alpha like Chark, and we've kind of seen the ramifications, what that can have on the rest of the crew. And, yeah, I'm with you with Goff. I mean, how does he only throw the ball 32 times in a game where Josh Allen and company just roared out to a 25-point lead? Run first offense. I don't think they're going to have any problems doing that against the Giants. All right, another, I think, tough one that wasn't going to be so tough a few weeks ago, but Mr. Joe Burrow versus Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson. I mean, and I love Joe Burrow, but this is the classic example of people overreacting. And maybe I'm a little more aware of this because I'm so much in the betting space now where this is like a constant theme. But Deshaun Watson started the season with the Kansas City Chiefs, who a defense that I think is really underrated with Steve Spagnuolo. We saw what they did to Lamar Jackson. Then they play the Ravens, who have a very good defense when they're not facing Mahomes. And then they play the Steelers, who have one of the best defenses in the league. Last year, and I think it's carried over enough to this year. They still got the same pieces. So kind of a classic spot where just a really tough schedule for him. This Minnesota defense hasn't been good. They just got in a shootout with the Titans. It's going to turn around in short order for Deshaun.
Yeah, I think, having Burrow there, most dropbacks in the league, we've seen him have that rushing floor, versus a lot of guys. I do have Burrow as a QB1 this week, in the top 12, but versus Watson, no, I think you nailed it. As long as the Vikings don't have Danielle Hunter and the secondary remains banged up, we just got to keep going back to the well. And credit to Watson, even during this stretch, man, he's still averaging career-high marks in adjusted completion percentage and yards per attempt. I mean, it hasn't been pretty because the Texans are giving up, 30-plus points per game, and they haven't been able to get in the win column just yet. But, even this post-Hopkins offense still looks like they're going to be able to put up plenty of points. And, yeah, this schedule, man, just keep looking at this up until mid-November. Vikings, Jaguars twice, Titans, Packers, and Browns. Go get any of these guys if you can. Find someone to sell them low.
Fun fact real quick. The only team to ever start 0-3 and come back to make the playoffs, the Houston Texans, and they did it 2 years ago. So, this was just, kind of written for them to go do. Unlike Peterson, who just punted away the season in Philly.
It's going to be tough to lose too many games when you consistently have the better quarterback of the matchup. We didn't see that quite as often those first 3 weeks, but I think moving forward, we will. All right, one last quarterback question. Mr. QB1, Josh Allen versus Kyler Murray.
Josh Allen. Kyler Murray, I talked about this in the Fantasy Labs breakdown last week. It was okay, We have enough money to get up to Russell Wilson. Why are we even going to go with Kyler when he's averaged like 7 yards and under per attempt in his career? He's just not quite as good of a passer. And in this situation, they're both, you had those questions about both of them. And I think people think Kyler is the better passer. But this year anyway, it's been Josh Allen, and he's facing one of the worst defenses in the league. The only thing you could maybe be worried about a little bit is the traveling, East Coast to West. But Sean McDermott tends to get those guys prepared 13-7 against the spread in those spots. So that tells you they're handling their business.
I like that spread number, man. Yeah, I think it's a great problem to have. You have these two quarterbacks on your roster. But yeah, I do have Josh Allen QB3, Kyler at QB5. It's been incredible to see what Hopkins does. And, firing up that Kyler Hopkins stack is going to be at this point with Adams and Michael Thomas banged up, one of the higher floor ones you can come up with. But I mean, this is like a sneaky shootout potentially with the Bills and Raiders. I think the Cardinals are really going to have, be able to run the ball all over the Panthers because that's what everyone does when they face the Panthers. So could end up being more of a Kenyon Drake week than we've seen in the past. Moving on to some running back questions. Got a couple here with Darrell Henderson. First, though, Henderson versus Joe Mixon.
Like Darrell Henderson, he's the hot guy right now. But the one thing about the Rams is that McVay has kind of said he's willing to mix it up a little bit. This is a script that, while it does favor the run, it could favor the run with like the third or fourth string guy. You know what I mean? Like the way the Giants are playing, like you might see, Raymond Calais in there at some point. So I'm a little more cautious with Henderson. We've seen, Malcolm Brown kind of step up at times. Akers looked good before he went down. But I just think that especially in a game like this, there's a lot of uncertainty. Like things could go a lot of different ways. So I'm still rolling with Mixon against the Jags, who are one of the, if not the worst defense in the league. I think you hit on it. Burrow will be able to move the ball, and that's going to help Mixon because the offensive line really hasn't helped them. But if they move the ball, that's more touchdown opportunities. I think it's a good spot for him.
I really wish this was like the most lopsided Mixon start-sit question I've got this week, but it's not even close. People are giving up on this guy right now, and he's on pace for 315 touches. It's not like he's going to play 16 games and just not find the end zone. And I understand it's frustrating when we have guys like Mixon where, we see him catch the ball and they look great doing it, and then we just continue to see Giovanni Bernard get those snaps, but that's been the reality. And this exact same scenario played out last year. In weeks 1 through 3, 2019, Mixon had 26.8 PPR points. This year he has 27.2 PPR points. So he's going to be okay. Keep following that volume. And in this case, it is a good player. I wish the O-line was better and there was more targets as well. But, continue to treat Mixon as that borderline RB1 that he has been for the better part of the last 3 seasons. All right, another Darrell Henderson one, this time versus David Johnson.
Call me crazy, but I like Johnson this week. And the reason is this. It goes back to the game script and the strength of opponent. When you are facing a tough opponent, you are not going to be able to run the ball as much. You see a clear correlation between, carries going down when your point differential goes wider against you. And so Johnson has only got, I think it's 11, 11, 13 in terms of his carries the first 3 weeks of the season. However, he's getting pretty much all of the backfield work. This team isn't necessarily like peppering any one guy with targets. Fuller had his week and they have Cooks, but they kind of rotate guys. And Johnson's really been getting a ton of work, comparatively to the other guys on that team. And this Minnesota defense, again, just it's shaky all around. It's not the Zimmer defense we're used to. So I like Johnson.
Yeah, I got Johnson 3 spots ahead of Henderson as well. I think you said it. And look, I mean, the volume that we hope for with Johnson coming to Houston as the centerpiece of that DeAndre Hopkins trade, check. Johnson is still healthy. Check. And the one, like, that was fine. Like, that was going to probably give him enough volume just to even meet his kind of RB2 ADP. But he actually looks good. I mean, not even just week 1. Like, last week, scored a touchdown. He's averaging the same amount of forced missed tackles he had as a rookie. And, up into that magical, 2015, 2016 stretch. So I'm not saying he's exactly that same guy, but at a minimum, he's better than the guy we saw over the past 2 seasons. And I think he's a little more capable of surviving, not just on target volume. All right, so 2 more running back ones. First, we have just, all-around worldwide superstar James Robinson versus waiver-wire darling Mike Davis. Who you got?
I got to go with Robinson, and I'm not even joking. Like, I think he's pretty good. I said this before the season. I was like, everyone's kind of wondering if they should take, who was it, Raquel Armstead. I'm like, there's a new OC. So that means there's not, like, even though this head coach is there, he doesn't have allegiance to any of these players on offense. That's why D.D. Westbrook got benched the first 3 weeks. And he found this undrafted gem. And Gruden, this is what he does. Rob Kelly, Alfred Morris. He is the king of like these bigger undrafted free agent types and turning them into stars. And honestly, I think Robinson is better than a lot of backs in this league. And like, he shouldn't be more expensive than Clyde Edwards-Helaire on DraftKings. That is egregious. But don't look at the name and say, I have to wonder. He's a every week starter.
Yeah, right now only Kamara, Aaron Jones, Zeke, and Dalvin Cook have more PPR points through 3 weeks. I don't think that's going to hold up for the entire season. We did see, Chris Thompson take away a lot of the pass game work. But, 6 targets for Robinson himself in a game where Thompson takes away that much work. Great to see. And this week's matchup particularly, is going to be a situation where I don't think they're going to face, the sort of just extreme negative game script that we might see a little bit moving forward. So
I'll bet you any amount of money that Robinson's numbers will hold up longer than Chris Thompson's health. Thompson's done by like week 6. Like, it's, you know what I mean? He's got a couple weeks left.
Yeah, I might have made that bet in week 1 when things were looking clear, but we've gotten a couple weeks already. I don't want to push the luck too much. So good point there. Another one with Mike Davis. I'm guessing this is going to be the same way, but we're not getting too crazy. I mean, Jonathan Taylor locked in RB1 over Mike Davis, despite, seeing a little bit of interesting usage last few weeks.
Yeah, you still got to go Taylor. It's not as crazy as it sounds. When Davis, was going to get the nod as a starter a couple of weeks ago, I wrote on the Action Network that, it might be struggle to start, but it's going to get easier. And now we're getting to a spot where they're playing Arizona. It's a high total game. So I'm not worried about Davis at all. But Jonathan Taylor is just such a talented player. Davis is a journeyman. You have a defensive game. And while that may scare people, that actually usually means that there's going to be more rushing attempts. And when the game is close, you may see a back go for like 30 carries. So even though it's two very good defensive teams, I wouldn't be scared of the matchup.
Yeah, we've seen Wilkins get involved these last few weeks, but it's almost exclusively been in garbage time, in non-garbage time game script. Taylor's had 66 snaps, Nyheim Hines 25, and Wilkins only 15. These are good problems to have, though. I mean, Robinson, Taylor, Mike Davis, I think all these guys should be in the top 20 backs. I mean, Davis, over these last 2 weeks, is tied with DJ Moore with 17 targets, which is pretty hysterical considering they weren't really feeding Christian McCaffrey as much as they usually were. Mike Davis comes in, starts doing his thing. And to his credit, he tied for the most forced missed tackles last week. So not a complete scrub. I know he's been on a bunch of teams over the years, but they keep feeding him, a middle-class man's version of this McCaffrey workload. He's going to continue to be an every week starter. Moving on to some wide receiver questions. We got Cooper Kupp, who had the big week 3 versus Alpha Dolphins #1, DeVante Parker.
Ooh, this is tough for me because I hate to pick against Parker. I like him a lot this week. I think I have him 17th or something, which is higher than he's been for me all year. But I still have Kupp in the top 12 along with Robert Woods. Listen, before the season started, everyone was worried about, will Cooper Kupp still have a role in the offense with Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett? Newsflash, Cooper Kupp is like Jared Goff's best friend and the centerpiece of Sean McVay's offense. He was just giving him a break last year because the dude was coming off an ACL and ripped it up, and the team had no playoff shot by the end of that. So I think Kupp, week in, week out, the guy's going to either get 100 yards or he's going to score a touchdown. You can't find too many of his game logs over the past 3 years where he hasn't done either.
I was someone that probably put a little too much stock in some of that puzzling late season usage, but you know what? We got to adjust, and we've seen this year he is now a full-time centerpiece in 2 wide receiver sets. And it was weird to see that at the end of last year, but yeah, like you said, I mean, when we know this person is going to be the number 2 target, at worst case in the offense, things are fine. But guess what? He can do it, and Robert Woods can do it, because Robert Woods only 1 fewer carry than DeAndre Swift this season, which that I guess opens up another pickle. But
yeah, like Swift, that's a guy I'd worry about, because I think, the minute they signed Adrian Peterson, it was clear that Matt Patricia wasn't thinking with his right mind. And so, now they're kind of rotating guys in. There might be a week where Swift gets, the most snaps in the backfield, but we won't be able to predict it. DFS tournament only. But the thing, going back to Kupp real quick, it just was crazy to me that, everyone was like, he had a bad second half of the year. He was the first guy ever to have a terrible second half and finish the year with 5 straight touchdowns. I know touchdowns are high variance, but you still have to have some skills to score some touchdowns.
I hear it. It's funny we're talking about Kupp and Parker right now because Kupp was the wide receiver 2 in fantasy the first half of the year, and then Parker was the wide receiver 2 in the second half. And Parker's been looking. I know on the last broadcast, I think it was Aikman kept talking about Parker not looking good. I mean, the guy is averaging like a career high mark in yards per target, and now he's going up against this Seattle secondary that's all kinds of banged up. Do you like this Dolphins stack in GPP, or is that maybe a trap situation?
Like, I love the Dolphins this week. Like, come on. I mean, like, look at the Seahawks. Like, all right, think about how good Russell Wilson's been. This is how I'm going to, like, put it to people. Think about how good Russell Wilson has been this year. The Seattle Seahawks defense has given up 394 more passing yards than Russell Wilson has thrown for. They have given up, like 400 more air yards than any other team in the league. They are worse than the Falcons right now. Like, it is absurd. And it's because some of it's because of Wilson. But at the end of the day, you have to take your shot here. And the thing I love about Parker, and this is the time of year when you really have to start paying attention to this stuff because trends start to emerge. Guys get healthier. Parker, first week, hurt, was in and out of the game. Second week, 90% of the routes run per dropback. And then in week 3, according to Pro Football Focus, 100% routes run per dropback. That is money in the bank versus the worst defense in the league.
Moving up, and yes, as you said, arguably 2 top fantasy quarterbacks this year, Russell Wilson, whoever is playing the Seahawks. So keep going back to that well. Another wide receiver question, Juju Smith-Schuster versus Will Fuller.
Another guy I hate to pick against is Will Fuller, but why? Like, this is another guy I think people are overreacting to his slow start. Juju, I mean, he had a multi-touchdown game already this year. The volume's been solid. It hasn't been terrible. I think maybe people expected like that Antonio Brown combination season with him that they had in 2018 before Ben went down. But I don't think that's the Steelers' game this time around, simply because they have a much better defense and they're just a little more in control, and they know they need to spread it around a little bit more just to kind of keep the defense honest, and it's working out for them. So I don't think they're going to change it too much, but Juju is still the most talented wide receiver on that team, although Chase Claypool might push him. No, like Juju, don't like it's been 3 weeks. Relax. Play your good guy. Play your guys that are talented.
Okay, so in normal week, I think I'm with you. But how concerned are we about this Steelers-Titans game maybe not happening? I mean, do you think if people have a pretty close toss-up similar to this, that you should just go with the guy who we at least know for sure at this point in the week is going to play?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's assuming that we have any indication. Like, if the game it's already postponed for Sunday, but if it's like, okay, it's going to happen on Monday or whenever, Tuesday, then that's fine. I think you make the decision as you would a Monday night game. But I do think that, yeah, if you have a close call, it's just like a 4 p.m. Lock. It's like if you don't know if you can wait or not, you have to go with the earlier guy.
Fair. Yeah, the only last thing I'd add here is that, Juju, I know he's been banged up throughout the week. And I don't know, man, like I don't want to put too much into the eye test, hashtag watch the film. But he didn't look 100% last week, and he really hasn't looked all that great this year. He's still putting up the touchdowns. And if Deontay's out, I think we'll have the targets to, make the most of it. But, just something to keep an eye on moving forward. All right, next one. We need to pick 2 out of this group. We're just going to assume that DJ Chark and Deontay Johnson are healthy. So between Chark, Johnson, and DJ Moore, who's the odd man out?
The odd man out. Oof. I would go with Johnson just because of the uncertainty with the situation.
Yeah. You buying the DJ Moore comeback season potential?
I mean, listen, I think I had him like 20-something last week, and people were like, why did you have him so low? And it's just like he's on an offense that's just going to be shaky sometimes. I think the way they get 5 field goals in the red zone or something last week, like it's going to be up and down, but I think long-term he'll be fine. Again, talented guys are going to draw targets and they're going to put up numbers. It just won't happen every week unless you're Calvin Ridley or DeAndre Hopkins or Devontae Adams or one of those guys. So I think he'll like come back. Sure. I mean, I don't think it's even like we're calling it that yet, but yeah, I think DJ Moore is fine. Like, I think it would be hard to find a guy right now that I don't think is fine. That's like on the public mind. Like, I mean, you could try me, but like, I think people are generally just overreacting right now.
I hear it. It is a classic overreaction period. So I do think DJ, 26% target share, 50% air yard share right now is going to be fine as this offense that, had less continuity than pretty much anyone going into the year continues to get better. Okay, just two more here, and then we'll get on some DFS picks. But pick two out of this group: Odell Beckham, Keenan Allen, and Marquise Brown.
Oh, that's a good problem to have. I got to go Beckham and Allen. Love Marquise Brown, but the Ravens can win without throwing the football. Whereas I think the Chargers, with that really stacked defensive front, for Tampa Bay, they're going to have to use Allen again at monster levels. And I was down on Allen coming into the year for one reason and one reason only, and that was Tyrod Taylor. With Herbert, even though he's a little erratic, makes some mistakes, you're seeing the Rivers type of numbers with Allen. So love him. And Beckham, this is just a perfect game script for him. They got stuck in, just a mismatch with Baltimore. Then they were in positive scripts for most of the other two games. So it was Chubb games, even though Cincinnati made a run at them late. But this is a game where you expect Dallas to be able to put up 30-plus points. Cleveland has showed the ability to be able to score as well. So I think you could see Beckham really eat. I think Mayfield, this might be one of his better weeks of the year as well.
Yeah, we know the Cowboys secondary has been awful this year, but somehow it could have been far worse. They have the highest drop rate percentage against this year at 10.5%, even though everyone's just shredding them. And then you also consider the Metcalf, fumble out the end zone, and the Cowboys, again, just already awful secondary has somehow gotten lucky through a couple of weeks. I'm with you. Hollywood Brown, two better balls away from having a huge Monday night potentially, but, with this great problem to have, you would have to go OBJ and Keenan. All right, last one, tight end starts sit. Noah Fant versus Tyler Higbee.
Oh my goodness! I bet on the Jets. So, Brett Rippon. This is outrageous that they opened as a favorite, but I still got to go Noah Fant just because Tyler Higbee. I think the concerns that people had for Cooper Kupp are actually happening to Higbee. And I was high on Higbee, and he still had some big games and has a great touchdown expectation this week. But his routes run per dropback have been slipping, and he's around 50% for the year. So I just don't know that we can trust him, especially in what could be a blowout. I don't know if we can trust that he'll play the whole game, whereas I know Brett Rippon is going to be, slinging it into the ground enough to at least, get Fant a target or two in this disgusting game. So I'm still going with Fant because he could lead his team in receiving, and I just don't know if they need Higbee to do that in the Rams game.
Yeah, the week 3 usage was concerning. Higbee went down, Gerald Everett went up. The 3 touchdowns in week 2 were great, but yeah, the more I dove into this today, last night I originally ranked Higbee over Fant, but I think I'm probably going to make the switch because, hey, without Courtland Sutton there, it's probably going to be Judy at number 1, but also wouldn't be shocking if Fant actually ends up leading the way. So thank you all for sending in those start sit questions. Quick shout out to our sponsor over at Underdog Fantasy. If you like fantasy football and need to be playing on Underdog Fantasy, I love it. Best experience out there. Do snake draft games for real money every week. Draft a new team and you get a shot at big prizes. Team that built the app top notch because its support is the best in the game, consistently updating and adding new features. When you make your first deposit today at Underdog Fantasy on the App Store or UnderdogFantasy.com, please use code PFF after you do to let them know I sent you. All right, next up, we're going to go over some of our top DFS plays of the week. Chris and I are each going to provide one QB, RB, wide receiver, and tight end. We'll talk about whether or not they're more of a cash or tournament play during the explanation. So, Chris, who you really feeling at the QB position this week?
In cash, I think you got to go Russell Wilson. I just don't think you fade these kind of hot streaks, especially when he's going against this Miami Dolphins team that is one of the worst in the league against the pass. And you look at the Seahawks and what they're going through on the ground with Carson getting hurt. They've only had 1 rushing touchdown and to Wilson's 14 passing. And some say, that will regress, and it absolutely will. But you're also getting to a point now where, passing touchdowns within a season, about 10 games to stabilize. So you're already getting a 20% kind of predictive rate just out of these 3 games. And since 2017, he's averaging 2.14 touchdowns per game. So this is just an absolute another smash spot for Wilson. And I don't think you want to get cute with everyone else because everyone else, there's at least some question. It's like Josh Allen. Okay, maybe the travel, maybe the Bills finally, have a shaky game or he commits too many turnovers. Kyler Murray doesn't always pass efficiently. Patrick Mahomes is playing Belichick. Lamar Jackson got exposed, again, was kind of concerning. I think he'll bounce back, but, he's also more expensive. So to me, just go with the safer guy. Like, he's not that expensive. You can fit him in. He's going to be the highest scoring player on the slate.
Yeah, and when, they're still not really giving Lockett or Metcalf the top 5 price tags to go along with it, you can lock in, arguably the most condensed target share in the league with that. So Cash, I'm with you, need Russ. I'm looking at the other quarterback as you brought up, talking about the Seahawks earlier. But yeah, let's go with Ryan Fitzpatrick, everyone. Look, the guy went 18 for 20 last week. Preston Williams and Mike Gesicki each only have 1 catch, and they found the end zone, so it wasn't a complete disaster. But, everyone's looking at the targets afterwards and upset. And, okay, with Gesicki in the slot and Isaiah Ford, playing there, it's a little problematic, but this is the game where we could see, 40-plus pass attempt Fitzmagic just in comeback mode the entire time. Jamal Adams is probably out, and so is potentially Quentin Dunbar. So this is already a secondary that, again, has not been having success even at full strength. Now they're banged up. It's a situation like last week I was probably more in on Daniel Jones in that passing game against a banged-up 49ers defense, more so than I should be. So, this is why you shouldn't cash it, because any team where, they're probably going to finish the year with 5 or fewer wins, just maybe take an extra hesitation. It would have helped me out if I did that last week. But I do think, as cheap as Fitzpatrick is and as doable as his stack is with the injuries, I have no problem going up that well for GPPs. Chris, you liking at running back?
I mean, this is a pretty good week. I think at running back, there's a lot of different guys you could go with up and down the board. I mean, for me, I'm still going with Alvin Kamara if I can fit him in. I just think that game with the high total, with them on the road, with whether Thomas is back or not, this is what the Saints are going to be now. Drew Brees can't really get the ball down the field, so I love Kamara. I'm just going with the chalk. And Detroit bottom 3 against running backs this year makes it even better.
He seems like $1,000 too cheap still. He's on pace to shatter McCaffrey's reception record last season. So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think they've caught up just yet. Even if Michael Thomas finds a way to get back, I mean, they're still going to be feeding this guy. I'm liking Clyde Edwards-Helaire for tournaments because there are so many good backs in that 5,500 to 6,000 range. I think the reality that Clyde should probably be, he would be, I think, in that 7,000 range if pricing had come out before the Monday night game. We've seen everything we could ask for with his usage since that week 1 game. He's not getting 90% snaps quite, but that's fine because he's getting all the touches. I mean, in the 2 games this year where they've had positive game script, he's cleared 20 rush attempts with ease. And then after the goose egg week 1 through the air, he's gone 6 catches for 32 yards, 5 catches for 70 yards, and more importantly, the guy just looks awesome. Only Josh Jacobs has forced more missed tackles this season than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's a situation now where I know past matchup data isn't always the most sticky in the long term, but the Chiefs just I don't know why the Patriots can't figure out how to guard these running backs, but it's been again and again over the years. Kareem Hunt had 5 catches for 98 yards and 2 scores, and then 5 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown against the Patriots. Damian Williams had 5 catches for 66 yards and 2 scores. I mean, Andy Reid in these wheel routes just continues to give the Patriots trouble while their secondary remains as good as ever. The front 7 is looking a lot weaker, and we saw, I could take an advantage of a little bit week 2 against the Seahawks. So I think Clyde, a little bit underpriced, and it's a way to get away from some of those more chalky guys in the 5,500 range. Chris, you're looking at wide receiver.
At wide receiver, I've been going with Hopkins. He's way up there at 8,500 now. I think you want to get in at least one, if not both, of these Seattle guys, even if you're playing Wilson, and just kind of go high-low. But my favorite value, I think, is DeVante Parker at 5,700, because I think some people will still end up going with Fitzpatrick and cash, which I get it from a pure value perspective, but again, you have to pay up for somebody, and I think Wilson's the right play because he's the highest floor guy, and so you can still get exposure then to the number 1 expected pass catcher in that Dolphins offense, who again has run 100% of the routes per drop back. But I will just give a quick shout out to a guy I love in GPPs, and that is T. Higgins for the Bengals in what should be a kind of back and forth game with Jacksonville. He also led the Bengals in snaps among wide receivers last week. That was big. So look out for T. Higgins as well.
I like that call. I have one GPP kind of dart, and that's, Gabriel Davis with the Bills is actually playing almost every snap. And if John Brown is out, we have a potential high scoring game, and he is just so cheap. You can make some Josh Allen stacks there. But my main guy, I have a similar thought process with you, where I'm looking at the always awesome FantasyLabs models that powered by the always great odds maker, best projection man in the biz, and got some solid projected ownership over there too. But looking at this mid range of wide receiver, at least for now, it's looking like Will Fuller at 5,900 and DJ Moore at 5,600 are going to be the chalkier guys there, and that leaves Parker at 5,700, and as we mentioned before, OBJ at 5,800 as potentially just better setup receivers, I think, period. And then if we're getting the discount on the ownership as well, that's even better. But mention the Cowboys secondary, and things haven't been looking that great for Jarvis Landry this year. Beckham's been fine though. I mean, he truly has. They're in Cleveland, they're more or less running the same Minnesota offense we saw in 2019, and Beckham has that Stephon Diggs down the field, high average target depth role, and I just don't think there's anyone on the Cowboys that can guard him when he's playing as well as he is right now. Chris, thoughts on tight end?
So I like Logan Thomas a lot still. He's getting targeted at like a pretty much a league high rate among tight ends. I know who you're going to pick, and I love him too. And I think Hunter Henry still is in this mix because you look at Tampa Bay and their strength is their front, and you're going to have to do some things with somebody other than Eckler. Tampa Bay's given up just 157 yards on 50 carries to back. So I think you're going to have to go to Henry and try to, stretch those linebackers and or get some matchups with the safeties. And so it's going to be an Allen and Henry game. And Henry's been pretty consistent, even with all the kind of quarterback turmoil in LA. So I think he's too cheap. Is like the tight end 9 at 4,600.
Yeah, he's been good, just hasn't found the end zone yet. And so, that's going to break at some point. But yes, I am liking TJ Hockenson a lot this week at 4,800. Shout out, had Dwayne McFarland on the pod that came out this morning, and he kind of tipped me off on it originally. But season high marks and targets last week with 7, snaps with 54. Most importantly, routes at 35. I mean, this is a situation where we've seen Jesse James, for whatever reason, keep him on the bench. It's still annoying that this offense is going to, devote 20 plus carries to Adrian Peterson at certain points. But, first week back with Golladay, it wasn't a situation where we saw just Golladay take that number 1 spot and push Hockenson even further down. It seemed like Hockenson almost leaped Marvin Jones, and they could be moving forward with Golladay and Hockenson as their top 2 guys. I think it makes sense. There's still a little bit of, I don't think we can quite treat Hockenson as an every week tight end 1 until we see a little more consistency. But, coming off just that more, 4 catches, 53 yards. It wasn't awful, but flowchart game against the Cardinals, everyone expected much more. It didn't quite happen. So definitely think Hawk has a chance to rebound this week.
I think we can count on him as a tight end 1 because the number one thing that's going to predict future playing time and routes run is the most recent data you have on routes run. He played 89. He ran around on 89% of the dropbacks last week. That is absurd for a tight end. Most of those guys usually top out around 80, 85%. So that is actually one of the best data points, and he's one of my favorite plays for the week too. When you wrote him up, I was like, oh, that's the guy I wanted. Like I love Hockenson.
As long as the lines don't lie, yes, he should be looking good moving forward. So, all right, everybody, that's going to do it. Thank you for tuning in to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, and thank you, Chris, for coming on. Everyone, make sure you go follow him on Twitter at Chris Raybon. Anything you want to plug or shout out on the docket?
Yeah, listen to the Action Network Fantasy Flex Podcast. It comes out every Tuesday with Friedman, Corner, and I. And then on Thursday, we come out with the betting pod, and it's a really good pod. So check both of those out. And, of course, the DFS breakdown for the main slate on Sunday.
Awesome stuff over there from those guys. Truly some of the sharpest dudes in the business. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. People ask me how they can get, a discount on a PFF subscription. This is how. You go to Monkey Knife Fight, you put at least $20 into an account, use promo code PFF, and you will get a free PFF Edge annual subscription, $40 value for just $20. And hey, if you're playing hot, you can go on Monkey Knife Fight, play DFS or prop games, and turn that $20 into more. So opportunity to get PFF for free. Sounds good to me, and it should sound good to you. Go to Monkey Knife Fight, code PFF. That's going to do it, everyone. Thank you again for listening to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. You can tune back in every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm host Ian Hartitz, and until next time, take care.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel, and if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.